It's a little airish out here this evening.
It is. It's kind of cold.
Yeah, it feels kind of nice though too. When we go back inside where it's warm, that'll really feel nice.
It will, but it's kind of drier inside, so I like this. I do.
You like the moist, and you can hear the crickets, and we had some rain, and now it just smells so nice outside.
It does. It smells
the
fresh.
leaves and the, yeah, wonderful. So it's late in the evening, but I've convinced Katie to sit down with me for a minute while I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things, Appalachian language, the words and the phrases that we use in the Appalachian Mountains. I'm just plumb foolish about it. And I could talk about it all day, but it's so much fun when I can rope somebody into talking about it with me, somebody on this side. I'm always grateful that you leave comments and share your thoughts about the words and phrases, but it's always interesting when I have someone with me. So I've roped Katie in with me today.
You didn't have to do too much roping.
No.
I thought it would be fun.
Yeah, she was more than willing. So I'm using the Dictionary of Southern Appalachian English just as reference. We're just going through it. And I've been doing these videos for a long time. In fact, we're all the way at the end of the alphabet. Now, I've not shared every word under every letter. I just go through and share a couple. Because, of course, if not, I'd keep you here all night. I might like that, but you probably wouldn't.
But you're really at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I've not shared them all. Now I can start back at the beginning with A. But, yeah, today we're going to talk about the letter Y.
That's crazy.
I know. It is crazy. So I'll link to some of those videos if you've missed them. So the very first one under the letter Y in the dictionary it's talking more about just how we add Y to things in Appalachia. You know, when we just say instead of striped, we say stripedy.
Yeah, like
instead of flowered or floral, we say floweredy.
I would say flowery. It's like
flowery,
I somehow
you put an R.
No, flowery, like I put the Y on the end, but it's like I somehow don't put the D in there.
Splotchety.
Splotchy.
Mingledy. Streakedy.
Streakedy.
Anyway, that's what the dictionary is more talking about. It's really interesting because one of my greatest achievements since I started talking about Appalachia way back in 2008, one of the things that's made me the happiest is that I ended up in this dictionary. The Blind Pig and the Acorn was used as reference, along with many other references. But here's some from the Blind Pig, 2014. Personally, I was never much for floweredy or stripedy. I am more of a checkeredy type myself. And then in 2017, Blind Pig, these adjectives ending in Y are the words one searches for when most words won't describe exactly as we wish. It seems I have heard them preceded mostly by kinda. For instance, my most becoming colors are kinda mingledy. Anyway, that's what the dictionary is talking about. Now, when I first seen that, the first thing I think of is, Katie, you know, we all, like you've heard somebody say, like you've got... Before we started, Katie said she had cold water instead of hot water. And I might say, why, didn't you know it was a little airish out here? So why you hear it use it like that? Why, he was the talkingest man you ever seen. So when you think about that, people have asked me over the years, is it W-H-Y or is it just Y? You know, how do you spell when you say that? Why?
I hadn't thought about that, but I know it's...
Here's you one, you'll know this quote. Why, I wouldn't go to the emergency room. They'd sew up a mosquito bite.
Yeah, I've actually said that.
Yeah, but...
And actually probably needed to go and didn't.
But anyway, and you know who said that, though, about you? Pap.
Yeah. Well, and he was right, too.
Yeah.
There was nothing that... Sometimes there's not... Yeah, you can't do nothing about it, so you might as well not go.
But when you think about that usage, then you think, are you saying why, like W-H-Y, or are you saying why, like the letter Y?
It's true. I never thought about that. Because it's definitely different than why. Like you ask someone, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Why is this like that? That's, yeah, I definitely categorize that in a different place in my mind. And when I'm talking, I don't, if I said like, yeah, well, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I say that a lot. I probably say it to Corie. But I don't, definitely when I say why, I don't mean like W-H-Y.
Right.
I mean why I just wouldn't do that or whatever.
Anyway, the dictionary's not talking about that.
Hadn't thought about that.
So here's the next one, Katie. This is one I've never heard, so I'm sure Katie hadn't either. Katie's like me. She sits down and she starts yawning. She gets sleepy.
It's this time of day.
If I wasn't talking, if I was just sitting here, I'd be yawning, and then before you know it, I'd be asleep. I go to sleep easy. But Yager, I've never heard that, Jaeger. And that is to find fault or complain. So it says 1922, Cobb, Kentucky Mountain Rhymes. Times I would sew up like a possum while the travelers would Jaeger to themselves. I've never heard that, but I like it. Why are you in there Jaegering? What are you Jaegering about?
Complaining, talking.
Complaining. Yeah, we would say quarreling. What are you quarreling about?
I don't know. I feel like I've heard that.
Jaegering? I like it.
Or I'd probably say like complaining, whining, bickering, jabbering, yeah.
The next one is Yahoo. Of course, you know, in today's world, people immediately think of the Yahoo website or email. If you have, I used to have a Yahoo email. I don't now, but you immediately think of that. But also, it's a uncouth backwoodsman. So we've heard that our whole lives. Like, you're just a Yahoo. You're just one of those old Yahoos, or that's a bunch of Yahoos down at the store.
I've said that, or I'm like, that's just a bunch of crazy Yahoos, a bunch of nuts. That's what I usually mean when I say Yahoo. I don't guess I usually save it to mean like
just country people.
Just country or Appalachian people. I just usually like think about people, crazy people, or like out of control Yahoos, or like kids. I'm like, bunch of Yahoos.
Yeah. It's the only one it gives for it is 1986. It was in Sullivan County, Tennessee, was a person from the country. But yeah, I'm like Katie, not necessarily meaning more like somebody that's acting crazy or wild.
Bad
or
behavior,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, the next one is really common throughout all the South, but definitely in the southern mountains here where me and Katie live. But it's just y'all. Y'all, all of you, both of you. See, also it says grammar and syntax, but we won't go look at that. So it goes all the way from like 1862 all the way to 1997, even more than that probably, talking about the usage. I'll go all the way to the end. If I ever hear tell of y'all making fun of anybody, I'll wear you out. I never heard y'all spoken by old-time mountain folks unless they were self-conscious in the presence of outsiders, and even then it was you all, not y'all. Yuns, Ewanses, Yornses, and according to the area, especially Tennessee, Yerns took the place of y'all between the Yadkin, Catawba basins to the Cumberlands in Tennessee. So in our area you hear y'all a lot, and I say y'all, but I also say yuns.
I don't say yuns much.
I would say it like maybe if I was trying to get something through the door and Corie and Katie and Matt, or now just Matt and Katie was sitting on the couch, I'd be like, Yuns won't even hold the door open for me. I'm having a hard time.
I might say it there.
Yeah. So it's interesting though.
I do mostly say y'all.
I say mostly probably y'all, but I do say yuns some.
It's so funny too, I don't even ever think about it. Like I don't know why, but I would never ever stop to say you all.
No.
And I don't even think it's because I live here and this is my dialect. I'm just like, y'all's a lot easier to say for one group
like
of people than you all.
Yeah. Here's one, a good one, Yanway. That way, in that direction. So over Yanway is where our chickens are at. So you've heard Yanway, yonder, yander.
Yanway is what I would say.
Yeah,
and
that's probably more common for us, Yanway.
I would literally say Yanway before I would say over yonder or over there.
Yeah.
I've always said Yanway. Yeah.
And then it says that way in that direction. It says see also, that away, Yanway.
I probably say that away more than I do say Yanway. I guarantee you, I didn't think about that.
This next one is one that I had never heard, but I learned after I started writing on the Blind Pig and the Acorn. Someone asked me if I knew what it was, and I think it was Don Cassida, I think, who told me about it. But it's a Yankee dime, and a Yankee dime is a kiss. This says a kiss or a hug. I thought it was just a kiss, usually given to a child for performing a small favor, such as a household chore. So a Yankee dime's a kiss on the cheek.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Let's see, 1989, Hannah Reflections. I'll bet you a Yankee dime you'll be seeing your own shoe. I don't know exactly what that meant, but and then it goes on to who it was known by. 1997, Johnson. Dad would promise us a Yankee dime if we would say words correctly, and we found out that a Yankee dime was a kiss on the cheek. So I like that one.
I feel like
but I didn't grow up hearing it at all.
I've heard it before, but I didn't grow up hearing it. I feel like this Hannah lady just said that because whoever she said, I bet your Yankee Dime you'll see your shoe. She just wanted to get whoever it was. You are going to see your shoe if it's on your foot.
Well, it may have been a man. You don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Either way, though,
That's
you think
true.
they were just
They were just saying, yeah, they were just wanting to kiss somebody, I think.
Okay, let's go to this next one. Yard baby. So yard baby, this is 1975, Lunsford. It used to be a yard baby is one large enough to run around in the yard.
Oh, the toddler.
Yeah, you do hear those, like lap baby is one big enough to sit up by itself in your lap. So there is different ones like that for different babies, but yard baby. This time next year, will we have a yard baby, maybe? Won't actually be running around, though. I guess still be a lap baby.
Be big enough to sit up.
Yeah, but not run around in the yard.
But probably not running.
Be 2 years before that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
probably
before
not.
long.
Probably not running unless I'm one of those people that have a baby. Some babies do walk it like on the mobile at 9 months.
Yeah.
Which is insane. No, mine will definitely be able to hold his head up, but that's probably about it. If he's like me, he won't be able to he'll be able to talk in complete sentences probably,
Yeah.
but he just won't be walking.
A little boy that I kept, Alex, is just like Corie and Katie's brother, because I kept him from when he was 2 weeks old till he went to school. But he could walk at 9 months. And Corie and Katie, though, were really slow to the point the doctor worried about their motor skills. But they could talk. They could talk in little sentences. So they just spent all their time worrying about talking. Alex couldn't really say much, but he could walk.
But he could move. I remember that.
Anyway, it's interesting. Exciting, though, to think about having one. Yeah. This is another one that was interesting, yarning. I would think that was like telling a story, telling a big yarn, but the dictionary says it's complaining. Quit your yarning.
I could see that.
I would think that was like telling stories, but I don't know. This next one's interesting. It's just year. We all know what that means. But you'll often hear here in our area people talk, and they don't put, like if they're going to say 28, like Katie's 27. Can't believe it.
No.
I would, 27 years old, most people would say, but you might hear somebody say, she's 27-year-old. They leave the S off. We leave the S off. Do other things like that too, like mile or feet, even though it should be, if it's a situation where you should say miles, like 5 miles, you might just hear, it's 5 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Leave the.
I've heard older folks say that.
Use year like that.
Papa and Granny have said, I heard them say stuff like that, where they'd just leave a letter, a plural.
Yeah.
Leave the S off, or sometimes they would put other letters that didn't.
Didn't belong.
No.
So we might say, I've been living here 28 years in this house. Anyway, that one's just an interesting usage, not really a word so much. This one is yearling, any various younger animals, not necessarily 1 year old. Have you heard yearling? Of course, there's...
Oh, yeah.
You hear your daddy talk about deer that's yearlings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that one's still common, at least in our area for sure. This is one, yell. Of course, we all know what yell means, but directly talking about a dog. A dog's yell. Most often I would hear a mouth talking about hunting dogs, the way it yells. We've got a little beagle that lives in our mountain holler right now, and you can hear him yelling all hours of the night and all hours of the day, chasing stuff through the area. But it's of a hunting dog to bark and yelp on finding a hot trail of game. 1939 Hall Collection, Smokemont. After a while, we hit a bear track. The dogs went to yelling. We turned them loose.
I've heard that before,
Yeah.
like dog, but I've only ever heard it mostly in context with beagles or hound dogs, or dogs hunting something.
Yeah, hunting dogs.
Yeah.
Yellow, and it's just talking about the variant forms, is yeller and yella. We say yella. I put an A on the end of it, yella. You say yella. Katie can't quit yawning. I'm going to have to put Katie to bed. Yeller or yella. I say yella.
Mm-hmm.
Yella. But I do hear people that say yeller.
I've heard that,
Yeah.
but I'll probably just say yellow. But I would say yellow.
Would you say yella? I think you say yella.
Probably.
It's probably one of those things where it depends on who you're talking to. If you're just here at home and you're like, I like the yellow one. But if you're out in public and you're like, and somebody's asking you what color, you'd say, that's yellow.
Probably.
Difference.
Yeah, I probably would say yellow one. And I probably would say that. And I sometimes will do the same thing with, instead of saying narrow, I'll say narrow. Narrow. I've heard Corie say that. Pap said that a lot. He would never say narrow. He would just say narrow.
Yeah, or narrow.
And I know what he meant.
And we say winda with an A and pilla with an A. But then there's also people that say pillar or winder.
Granny would say winder.
Winder, yeah. Let's see, 1997, we'll go all the way to the end. The foreman wore a pair of khaki breeches, yaller khaki breeches. 2006, Shelby, the well blew up and the creek turned yaller. So that one's interesting. This one is one that we won't see for a while. It's a yellow bell. You know what a yellow bell is, forsythia bush. So before we know it, though, time goes by so fast. We'll be seeing a yellow bell bush and holding a little baby.
Little bit.
Baby's little bit will be here. Anyway, but a yellow bell is a forsythia, same as Easter bush. Some people call them Easter bush. 2004, reminder of dwellings. Forsythia, still called yaller bells by some old-time mountain women, has prospered without human care along creek banks and other damp areas. I love that. The description that the dictionary's given there, the excerpt it's using, because so many times, Katie, we've hiked back in the mountains, different places, and if it's in spring of the year, you might see a yellow bell blooming. There's no sign of even a house being there.
No.
There's nothing. But that yellow bell, or maybe it's daffodils will do that too, lets you know that at some time someone lived there and they cared enough to plant the yellow bell.
It does
or to
let you
plant
know.
the daffodil, and that's just always one of the most bittersweet things. I just love it, thinking about those people that are long since gone, but they're, those things they did are still there. Yeah.
It is cool. It's an indication of if you're looking for an old home place or a trash dump or something, that's a really great place to start. That lets you know people were there.
Like
Sometimes you can see things like a flat spot or an old cellar or rocks, but a lot of the times it's just out in the middle of nowhere. Or in the cow pasture where Pap said that store was over there in Whitmire's field. There's daffodils that just bloom in the middle of the field in the same place.
A huge amount of them.
Every year. And he said when he was really, really little, he said he barely remembers it, there was a store sitting there, and I guess they were in front of the store. But it's crazy that all that stuff's long gone, but the flowers are still there. And whoever originally planted them, it's probably a woman, whatever woman originally planted them, it's cool to think. Whatever she touched and did is still there.
Yeah. I think I've wrote about it before, so I could go back on the Blind Pig and look, but off the top of my head, I think it was in a Lee Smith book, but I'm not positive about that. But it said the daffodils remember, when all the people's gone, the daffodils remember because they still bloom. So in spring of the year, that's one of our favorite things to do. Of course, living here so many years, I can, like Katie was talking about those in the field, I can pretty much point out the ones. I know daffodils are going to spring up right there next spring between here and Brasstown and then between here and over towards Martins Creek. And when Pap was still alive, I'd ask him, do you remember those down there, Katie, before you get to Johnny Hampton's where the solar panel thing is, those that are right there? He told me. I was so glad I asked him, because he told me that at one time when he was a little boy, there was an old house there, and that dude and Oscar lived there. And I didn't even know they lived out here. So he said they lived there in that little house.
Where did they live most of their time, or where did you think they lived?
In Canton. Yeah.
In Haywood County.
Yeah, in Haywood County. Anyway, so interesting.
Yeah. I didn't even know that. I hadn't heard that.
Well, I'm glad I told you. Now, when you see them blooming down there, you'll know. And then the ones that bloom closer to Maggie's Chapel, I always wonder if Maggie planted them. Maggie Martin, Anyway, we'll have to wait for next spring for that. Let's do one more, Katie, and then I'll let Katie go in and either take a nap or
sit by the heat.
Sit by the heat, yeah. This is a really interesting one. I've heard about this one my whole life. I doubt Katie has, but it's yellow jacket soup. So it is, I'll just read it to you, it better explains it. 1951, Ulmer and Beck, Cherokee Cooklore, hunt for ground-dwelling yellow jackets either in the early morning or in the late afternoon. Gather the whole comb, place the comb over the fire or on the stove with the right side up to loosen the grubs that are not covered. Remove all the uncovered grubs, place the comb now over the fire or on the stove upside down until the paper-like covering parches. Remove the calm from the heat, pick out the yellow jackets, and place in the oven to brown. Make the soup by boiling the browned yellow jackets in a pot of water with salt and grease added if you like. And then it goes on, it's got some more. But basically that was a traditional Cherokee recipe, a traditional, something they ate often. I would like to try it. I've always thought that. I would love to try it. I would definitely try it and see. We live in Cherokee County, and then we live not too far, what, Katie, I don't know, I'm terrible about miles, but what, an hour and 15, 20 minutes from the reservation.
Probably about an hour, it's not that long.
You know, so we have been exposed to their a lot of their folklore stuff. Of course,
yeah.
I'm not a historian or don't know much about it or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that, but that's one of the things. Of course, when you hear about Yellow Jacket soup, that sticks in your mind.
I'd just be like worried or concerned it would make me sick or hurt me.
I don't know.
I think that'd be the only hesitation I had.
I think it seems to me like it'd be very nutrient rich.
Might be.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was hungry, I wouldn't be complaining. I'd just eat what I had.
But I think that's true. You'd eat whatever you had. But I think because it shows up so much, like I said, that I've heard about it, maybe it was, and it was a traditional, I wonder what else they talk about.
It was a delicacy or
maybe it was
full of protein.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know, but
it's just usually telling the same thing. But anyway, maybe it was something that was really enjoyable, is what I'm saying.
Have been.
Yeah.
I probably made that face because I don't really like bee's nest. I don't like the texture of bee's nest. I think it's kind of creepy. So if I was going to eat it, I'd have to have somebody else prepare it because I don't want to fool with the bee's nest.
Corie and Katie both have a weird thing about textures, and there's a term for it. I don't know what it is.
I don't remember, but I don't like it.
I did not know that, and so when I noticed that they both had it when they were too little to like be faking it or something. I could just see it come over their face, like they get sweaty and pale, you know, even when they were real little. And I just thought, my Lord, my kids are weird, you know, in a lot of ways, but that was one of them. But then when I was working at the college, I worked with a lady, and she had the same thing. I was like, you're kidding me. And she's like, no, I've been like that my whole life. And then she told me the name of it. It's like, you know, one of the phobias or whatever.
I used to know it.
And I was like, you're kidding me. Corie and Katie ain't alone. And she's like, no. She said, yeah, it makes me instantly weak and
makes me like I'll pass out.
Like I'm going to pass
consciousness. Want to lose consciousness. Want to just have someone club me in the head. I don't know, just freaks
I suppose
me
it's
out.
the same kind of feeling that people get. Some people can't see blood, even their own blood. Maybe it's that same kind of
I don't
feeling.
have that. I could be bleeding out. I'll probably be smiling. I'll be okay. Yeah, that don't bother me. And nobody else's blood bothers me either.
It don't bother me either.
I just,
really, I don't know. Stuff like that. I mean, I don't like, I have a weak stomach, so some stuff makes me like a gag reflex, but not the weird like sweat and pale
like
and
parallel universe, brain's not working right. That's what it does to me. I'm like, my brain is just shut off and it's not working right.
And we can link to the video and you can go watch Corie and Katie talk about it, but another weird thing that happens to them, and when they were real little, again, I noticed it before they were old enough to have figured out to act like that. You know, of course now they're grown and they can talk about it, but it's when you feel deja vu. It makes them like that, trembly and weak. You know, I might be, the other day, I was getting something out of the dryer, and just all of a sudden, I had the weirdest sense of deja vu, and I was took back to being a little kid at Martins Creek School, and I just suddenly remembered, it must have been the smell, because I get something out of the dryer about every day, or something was just perfect to remind me that somewhere at Martins Creek School there was outside like a grate or something, and hot air come out of it. And in the winter, us kids would play around it, and it was just like, it's just all of a sudden I was like, oh, that's so weird. And I immediately texted my good friend Suzanne to ask her, you know, do you remember this?
Did she remember?
Yes, she remembered it. But anyway, so that's what deja vu I like it. It's like, oh, I've done this before or something. But Corie and Katie literally get to the point they almost pass out. And in fact, Corie did pass out one time.
Yeah.
Scared me to death. She passed out in the kitchen. It was almost like she had a seizure. I had to take her to the emergency room. She was probably, how old were y'all?
Like 14.
Something like
15,
that.
maybe.
Yeah. She went from talking to in the floor, face down, just like a tree fell, and then kind of had some seizure activity. It was all quick, like in a minute. I shook her and she woke up. But she had deja vu. That's what caused it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was something, I was making a cake, and it was something about me and the cake. I can't remember now.
If I get deja vu, the very first thing I do, I don't even care where I'm at. If I'm a public place, I just go ahead and sit down. It's just a good place to find the floor.
They both learned that, especially after Corie did that. Then they made a pact that they would...
just sit down.
Yeah, sit down. And then a dear friend, Linda, she taught them to... wasn't it Linda that taught you that? She said that it's some kind of connection between your left and right brain.
She said that, like, what happens is like, all the little synapses in your brain, one of them doesn't fire when it's supposed to. And that's what leaves you, like, feeling like that. So she said you should say it out loud, or you should repeat to yourself a number and a color, because it's supposed to work your left brain and your right brain and can help ward that off. She even said the same thing for people who, she told me one time she knew somebody who had a stroke, and she was there, and his face, you know, you start seeing all these like physical signs of stroke. And she told him and got him to start, like, just any number, any color. Or maybe she even told him and he repeated it. And it did apparently seem to help him. But, yeah, it's just not... At least as an adult, it's happened so long. Like, it's happened for so long. Now I know when it's coming. I know what to do. And I'm not as, like... But when I was a kid, there was nothing I could do except be terrified, paralyzed. And my brain's the kind that holds on to scary stuff. So if I see something that bothers me or hear something that bothers me... It's just usually harder for me to be like, well, that's not nice. I'll just lock that out, you know. Yeah. That's why I won't watch scary movies. It's why I didn't want to watch TV when I was little. It's all wrapped around the same thing in my head with the weird, all the weird stuff. Corey's the same way. Corey's one of the only ones I ever met, except my cousin April says the same thing about textures. And I never knew. She told us when we were an adult. I felt so bad. I didn't know. We had this bee's nest. I'm okay if I don't see the inside of the bee's nest. If it's the outside of the bee's nest, like a hornet's nest, and it just looks like parchment paper, that does not scare me. I don't want to see the inside of the bee's nest, and I'm okay. Which really, I've probably bought through exposure therapy, forcing myself to look at the scary stuff. I have somewhat overcome it. But she said, she's like, I always had a hard time coming to y'all's house, because it was just like a decorative bee's nest in the corner of a fork and stick in the corner.
Somewhere, a hornet's nest, and he brought it home and hung it in the living room.
Stayed in there forever.
For years and years and years.
And it freaked her out, but it was the outside.
Nobody. No. So y'all didn't know she had the same texture thing till she was
until we took it out, and one day she said, well, I'm glad it's not there anymore. And then told us, and I was like, for one, as strongly as I feel about it, I would have protected you by never letting that be around you. I would have annihilated it just to protect you, because I don't like, I know how freaky it is. Corey's like that with flower arrangements. There's some sort of flower, and what it actually is, it's a seed. It's just where it's gone to seed.
Seed pods, yeah.
And you see them all the time.
Mushrooms.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't do the mushrooms. But you see all those flowers in funeral arrangements. You see them in lots of times in restaurants, churches. Just flower decorations. I don't really like them at all, but they don't freak me out like there's other. I'm not talking about what freaks me out, because I can't even say it. I can't even say it out loud. But Corie don't like that, so I'm always trying to protect her. If I see something like that around, I'll either like, if I'm out in a restaurant or something, like, I'll just pull it out and turn it around and put it back in. Anything to do, because I'm like, I don't want you to see that, because it freaks me out too.
You're sweet. Take care of your sister.
I'm like, don't. Usually it comes out like, don't look over there. It's usually drastic, or I'll like grab her or like cover her eyes, and it usually scares her. But it's better than having to deal with the freaky thing that you saw. I don't know why I'm like this. And you know what? I really hope my child's not. I'm going to just not make a big deal about it, and maybe he won't be like this. Maybe
well, I didn't make a big deal about it.
No, you didn't.
I'm not like that.
Because you're not like that.
In fact, I was like, how silly are y'all? But until like I said, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes when they were real little.
Dad wasn't like that either, so I don't understand how me and Corie both. But I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a world full of other people who have a weird, creepy brain that don't work right. But the best thing to do is, definitely don't think about it. And also, don't make a big deal. If you see it and freak out, you shouldn't be looking at it, because the longer you look, you're not going to wrap your head around it and come to terms with it. It's going to scare you, so look away.
Well, I'm glad you took care of Corie, and now I'm going to take care of you and take you in and let you get warm. And thanks for talking to me. See, it's always fun with somebody else. We started out and talked about all these wonderful words that start with Y and ended with yellow jacket soup, and then got to talk about Katie's texture issues and her
some of my mental problems. I've never heard of that, and I do think it's interesting, because you start to think and wonder about, before there was like what we know as modern civilization. Even in the last 200 or 300 years, what we know is a more modern type of civilization. You think about people had to make use of every asset they had, so it would have been...
And things that were, whether it was that or something else, they fall out of fashion and they're just
Yeah,
not
and
as
then you
popular.
don't hear anything
and then
about it.
Other food ways, you know, get more popular. Well, we're always grateful when you stop by to help us celebrate Appalachia. And I'm especially happy Katie joined me today to talk about the wonderful words and phrases we use.